Hello guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with the dragon maid? Part 3. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Registering Kanna for school was a lot easier than he thought it would be. All he needed was a proof of his and Kanna's identity, proof of residence and written approval that Lukoa could walk her to and from school. He was then handed a list of supplies and a school-recommended store. However, when they reach the store, Kanna immediately begins pouting with a depressing aura. "What's wrong, Kanna? It's not cute." Seeing the deadpan look on Naruto's face, Lukoa giggles into her hand. Well, that's just how little girls are, Naru. Everything they own must be cute in some way. Sighing, Naruto just nods while thinking and leads them away from the supply store. "Oh, I heard of a new store that opened near the shopping district, let's check that one out." Nodding and grabbing hold of his hand, Kanna walks to Naruto's right as Lukoa follows on his left, heading towards the shopping district until they come across a store with a pink sign that read Boruzuka Stationery. "Well, this looks promising, don't you think, Kanna?" he asks as they walk into the store. When the young girl grips his hand tightly and her eyes start to light up at all the different colors, Naruto couldn't help but let out a small chuckle. "I'm glad you like it, now let's get your supplies." The next few minutes consists of the trio going through the shop getting pens, pencils, crayons and erasers. There was honestly a lot on the list, but Kanna seemed to be having fun, though he and Lukoa did have to stop her from eating an ice cream-shaped eraser, as well as stop her from setting off a child protection alarm. After purchasing all the supplies available at the store, they then moved on to get her backpack, and to do that a trip to the local mall was needed. Arriving the store that sold backpacks, Naruto looks to the small dragon. "Okay, Kanna, which one do you like?" Thinking for a moment, the white-haired girl grabs the red one and shows it to him. "This one." Nodding, he takes it from her so he could pay for it. "Why red? It looks like a cursed item that absorbed human blood." "Boy," Naruto mutters with a deadpan while Lukoa giggles again. "Ah, that takes me back to when people used to do blood sacrifices for me when I was a young goddess." Naruto sweat drops at the clearly reminiscing Lukoa as they continue towards the cashier, but he notices Kanna looking at a backpack accessory of a lion's face. Quickly grabbing it, she runs up to Naruto and pulls on his sleeve to get his attention. What's up, Kanna?" Holding her hand with the lion out, Naruto can tell she wants it, so he just smiles and takes it so he can pay for it along with her new backpack. Lukoa, who is off to the side looking at the scene, can't help but smile. He really treats her like his own daughter, doesn't he? She couldn't help but remember that vision she had last night and slowly moves a hand to her stomach. "I wonder." "Hey Lukoa, come on, we got one last store to visit," Naruto says, catching her attention. Smiling with both eyes open this time, Lukoa follows after the two. "Okay, coming." Walking out of the mall and back to the shopping district, they arrive at the store specifically designated by the school to pick her uniform for physical activities, since the school had no specific dress code. Won't Kanna start pouting again because of this store?" Lukoa asks with a tilt of her head as they enter. "Unfortunately, we don't have a choice as this place was picked specifically by the school as the only place to get the uniform she needs," Naruto says with a shrug of his shoulders as he goes over the checklist for indoor shoes, swimsuits and gym uniforms. Going up to the store owner and paying, the trio leave the store, with Naruto sealing everything in a scroll when nobody is looking. Glancing up at the sun and seeing that it's already evening, they decide to head home. As they are heading home, Kanna decides to climb onto his back. "You ready to go to school tomorrow, Kanna?" Nodding her head excitedly, the girl pumps her fist in the air. "Yeah." But after that she begins to yawn before snuggling into his back and taking a quick nap as she recharges using his chakra. Giggling at the sight, Lukoa pats her head. "I guess all that walking around tired her out." Looking at Naruto, she leans onto his shoulder as they walk. "You're a kind man. Not many gods are like that." Turning his head in confusion. "What do you mean?" Looping one of her arms in his, she begins to explain. "A lot of the gods from our world are selfish, they only usually care for their own goals, using humans and others as they see fit. Though dragons aren't any better, but you and Kobayashi saved Toru from death and even took in Kanna when she was exiled from her own home," she says, trailing off as she looks at the sunset. "Well, to be fair, I always wanted a family of my own. Toru arriving in that forest and Kanna coming by soon after was kind of a blessing in disguise," he says offhandedly. "I was even about to ask Kobayashi if she wanted to try for a child that night before we met Toru. Having all of you around and living together with us makes me really thankful, you know. So, I just want to make sure you all are happy as well," he says, turning to her and putting on a huge smile, making Lukoa blush at his words. "My, you're such a charmer, Naru," she says giddily as she pounces on him with a big hug and rubs her cheek against his. "Looks like I really did make the right decision in becoming bound to you." "Well, I'm glad you decided to stay, Lukoa," Naruto says softly. "Now come on, Toru should be home already, and I still have to pick Kobayashi up from work." Okay. By the time they reached the inn, Kanna had finished recharging, and Toru was already home working on dinner. After unsealing everything, Naruto takes flight so he can bring Kobayashi home. When he reaches the roof of her workplace, he sees both his wife and Takiya in conversation. So, you know Toru's friend, Fafnir? I actually saw him yesterday at a realtor trying to buy an apartment with actual gold. Takiya says with a sweat drop. Really? Kobayashi asks in disbelief. Yup, I ended up talking to him, it seems he wants to move to this world as well, so I offered for him to stay with me. Did he actually agree? Takiya nods, he did after asking if I had the same games you had at your place, he seemed pretty excited when I said I actually had more like that he could play. Kobayashi sweat drops, he's already hooked from playing once huh? Takiya chuckles, tell me about it, he even pulled an all-nighter for it. When Naruto lands on the roof, the two turn and look at him, yo Takiya, so you got a new roommate huh? Sure did, I heard you two decided to get a house. An old inn on the outskirts of Tokyo, you should come and visit sometime. I will if you don't mind. Looking over to his wife, are you ready to head home Kobayashi? Yup. She says as she climbs onto his back before he looks back to Takiya. You want me to teleport you home Takiya? Naruto asks the black-haired man who just shakes his head. Nah, I promised Fafnir I'd pick up a game he wanted, I'll see you two later. Takiya says in reply as Naruto begins to float up. Alright man, see ya. See you tomorrow Takiya. With that final goodbye, Naruto takes off towards their home. As they are headed home, Kobayashi begins to snicker, so, how did Georgie take the news? Naruto looks at her with a deadpan, not well at first, but I managed to. Convince her to not be mad anymore. How long did you guys go? 4 hours, till about lunchtime. I swear it's like she's a clone of you. Kobayashi begins laughing, did anything else happen today, or were you too busy having an affair with a maid without your wife knowing, she taunts teasingly. Naruto just huffs, well as a matter of fact, Kanna decided she wanted to go to elementary school with other children. Deed widens her eyes slightly, really? That's a surprise. Naruto nods, yay I thought so too, but Lukoa said she couldn't keep her eyes off the other kids that were walking to school this morning while they were in the city. So when they came by the cafe to have lunch I decided to take off early so I could register her and get all the school supplies she needs with Lukoa. Elementary school huh? Is it the same one Georgie's little sister goes to? Aborizuka Elementary, hopefully they become friends, but I think I'll watch over her at school with Lukoa just to be safe. Kobayashi begins chuckling, that nickname really fits you after all, he. Naruto gains a blush on his face, shut up, I'm just worried about her fitting in is all. You hear whatever you say to Naruto. Naruto just huffs and the two travel the rest of the way home in a comfortable silence. Uzumaki Inn. When the married couple arrives home they could already smell the dinner Toru had cooked for them. Heading in and leaving their shoes at the door with the others, they walk into the living to see Kanna sitting in Luko's lap watching TV as the ex-goddess brushes her white hair that's out of its usual pigtails. Sensing the two of them enter, Lukoa turns and faces them with a smile, welcome home Kobayashi. She says as Kanna hops off her lap and runs to hug Kobayashi. Welcome home Kobayashi. Patting the top of the small dragon's head, so I heard from Naruto you're starting school tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, wait right here. Kanna says as she races off to her room and comes out later with her red backpack on and gets into a pose, look Naruto, Kobayashi. Oh. You look really cute with that backpack Kanna. Kobayashi exclaims. Naruto walks up to her and rubs her head, she's right, you look ready for school. Lukoa comes up next to Kobayashi, phew, it took me bribing her with sweets and brushing her hair to take it off the first time. She's really excited for tomorrow. Kobayashi puts on a small smile, I'm glad she looks so happy about it. She says as Kanna begins climbing on Naruto, settling on his shoulders, and Naruto begins to run around the inn, while Kanna has a happy expression on her face. Doesn't want kids yet he says, Kobayashi mutters chuckling as he begins using chakra to stick to the walls and ceiling. Dinner's ready. Toru calls out as she comes out from the kitchen, Lady Kobayashi welcome home, how was work? Hello Toru, it was the same old, Kobayashi says walking up to Toru and giving her a kiss on the cheek, but Lukoa glumps her from behind, almost making her fall over. You didn't give me a kiss when you came in, Lukoa complains. Kobayashi sweat drops but turns around to give her a kiss on the cheek as well, only to have Lukoa turn into it making their lips touch instead, and when Kobayashi opens her mouth slightly in surprise Lukoa slips her long tongue in making it dance and twirl with Kobayashi's. Alright you two break it up. There is a child here, Naruto says with exasperation in his voice as he jumps off the ceiling with his hands covering Kanna's eyes. Taking her tongue from Kobayashi's mouth and licking her lips, my bad. I just couldn't help myself. Kobayashi steps back out of breath, but licking her lips also, wow, just wow. Now that you guys are done, I believe Toru said dinner is ready. He asks while looking at their maid, who was still blushing from watching Kobayashi and Luko kiss. Yes, Lord Naruto, dinner is ready, Toru says after shaking herself out of her daydream. Perfect, and let's eat quickly, I have to start on flying lessons for Kobayashi tonight. Getting voices of agreement, they all sit down at the dining table and eat the food Toru had prepared. Uzumaki in backyard. The 5 Uzumaki were currently in the spacious backyard of their home, the 3 dragons were sitting on the wooden patio, while Naruto and Kobayashi were on the grass. Kobayashi had gotten changed into a large white shirt over a black sports bra, black biker shorts and high-top green shoes. Alright, first things first, we need to undo the seal I placed on you, so your chakra isn't restricted anymore. It's better to learn to control it when you're like that in the long run. Naruto says as he takes hold of Kobayashi's wrist and channels chakra into it, revealing a seal painted on with black ink. Seeing his wife nod in affirmation, Naruto channels even more chakra, causing the seal to shatter and Kobayashi to be enveloped in light. When the light dies down, Kobayashi's new look shocks the 3 dragons that are watching. While her chest is still at the same flatness as before, her thighs became a little thicker and her hips become wider as well. Her hair has grown longer, reaching her mid-back instead of just past her shoulders, with her right side being white and her left being red. Her eyes have also changed, her left becoming eye gaining a slit, while her right becomes a black iris with a round white pupil. Though the aspect of her that stands out the most are the 2 red and white twitching cat ears on top of her head, 3 whisker marks on each of her cheeks, not unlike Naruto's own, and 2 cattails, the left red, the right white, swishing side to side from her lower back. While they were gaping at her form, they could finally clearly feel the same divine energy they felt from Naruto. While it was nowhere near as potent as his, it was still on the level of some minor gods from their world. Though Toru feels another energy that seems a bit familiar. Phew, I forgot how liberating this feels, Kobayashi says while stretching out and showing hair now longer than usual canines. Why is my hair half white? Naruto looks confused as well, the last time he released the seal, she didn't look like this. Even her chakra signature had changed a little, I don't really know, maybe some leftover chakra from Kagaya. She had white hair as well. After letting her warm up for a bit and readjust to her body, Naruto claps his hands to get her attention. Okay, so first things first, since you are not from my world, you didn't evolve like my people did to have a chakra network to regulate flow. Instead, you have chakra in every cell of your body. Naruto then sits down and beckons her to do the same. Jutsu for you will be inherently different, as you are basically a tailed beast like I am, which luckily means you won't need hand signs, and performing techniques will come more naturally. Bringing his hands together and making a bright light form between them, he continues explaining, the first thing you need to do is draw out chakra from your body, concentrate it into your palms, and try to form a ball like I have. Nodding and putting her hands in the same position as her husband's, Kobayashi begins to concentrate, focusing on bringing the power she could feel in her cells towards her palm. Sweat begins to form on her forehead as she could almost feel it coming out. Finally, after 5 minutes, a small ball of light forms in between her hands and she holds it for a few more seconds before becoming out of breath and letting go of the energy. Sheesh, that was way harder than I thought, she says while panting, but feels Naruto's hand on her shoulder. You did great, now that you know how to bring your chakra out we can try flying. Isn't that skipping a few steps? Like, what about walking on walls or water first? Naruto shakes his head, that would be the case if you were born from my world. But since you've turned into a being of chakra, stuff like walking on walls and water will be instinctual now that you've learned how to bring your chakra out. Naruto stands her up, being how we are, as chakra in a human form, all we need is concentration and visualization. It's honestly overpowered to the point of being unfair. Backing off a bit to give her space, he speaks again, okay, now visualize yourself slowly lifting off the ground, and while doing that push chakra out of your body in a downwards motion. Nodding at his explanation, Kobayashi once again closes her eyes in concentration. After a couple of seconds the grass below her begins moving as if being blown by a strong wind. A few more seconds later, and Kobayashi begins to float upward, much to the surprise of the dragons watching. When she finally opens her eyes, she looks down wide-eyed at the fact she finally started flying. Whoa. I'm actually doing it. She says looking at Naruto with a happy expression, and she begins to float up higher before she stops celebrating and looks over at him again in slight panic. How do I get down? Naruto chuckles, remember it's about visualization, just imagine yourself landing while slowly lessening the intensity at which you expel your chakra below you. Nodding once again, Kobayashi focuses until her feet softly touch the ground. Congratulations Maiko, now all you need is a bit more practice and you'll be flying like a pro in no time. Naruto says with a smile. Kobayashi gives him a hug, thanks for teaching me Naru, but what about my ears and tails? Wrapping yourself in an illusion is the next step, but we'll handle that tomorrow night. I'll just reapply the seal before you go to work in the morning. Kanna has her first day of school, and she needs to go to sleep, he replies, rubbing her head in between her ears and causing her to purr slightly. As the two were having their discussion, the three dragons walk up to them. Congratulations on finally being able to fly, Lady Kobayashi, Toru says. You did a great job, Kobayashi. Congrats. Thank you guys, now let's all head to the hot spring so we can get ready for bed. Remember, it's your first day of school tomorrow, Kanna, you don't want to miss it from oversleeping, do you? Rapidly shaking her head no, she grabs hold of Kobayashi and Toru and makes her way to the hot springs, dragging a chuckling Kobayashi and an amused Toru behind her. Watching the three leave, Lukoa turns to Naruto, is it really that easy to fly with your energy source? It only took about an hour for her to do it. Naruto rubs the back of his head, honestly, I wasn't expecting her to get it until this weekend, but Maiko has always been a fast learner. Lukoa giggles and grabs his hand, well come on, the others are probably waiting for us at the spring. Coming. Indoor hot spring. All five were once again relaxing in the warm waters of the hot spring when Toru notices something. Lord Naruto, I was wondering if you had any animal features like Lady Kobayashi does. Yup, I do, but I don't need a seal like her since I have complete control over my chakra. You guys want to see them? All three dragons lean closer while nodding their heads rapidly, causing him to chuckle. Alright then, standing up with the towel still around his waist, he begins to glow in the same fashion as Kobayashi previously did. Once the transformation is done, Naruto is shown to be taller and his muscles bulge out more than usual. His hair becomes shaggier, thicker and longer, going from mid-back to his lower back. Finally, as for his animal features, his eyes become yellow and his cross-shaped pupils, lion ears are on his head, and light-colored eagle wings sprout from his back as 12 lion tails are swinging lazily behind him. Whoa. Kanna is the first of them to speak as she rushes up to Naruto, accidentally dropping her towel as she does so, and begins to climb on him as usual, much to his dismay. Boy, Kanna, put your towel back on at least. He yells out at the currently naked loli crawling over him. The griffin with 12 tails. Kobayashi giggles at Kanna's antics, then looks to Lukoa, yup, well technically he's more of a lion with eagle wings, hence the lack of more eagle features. As she was talking, silver chains burst from Naruto's back, wrapping around Kanna and covering her nakedness. Putting her towel back around her, he sets her back in the spring before sitting himself. Lukoa puts a finger under her chin and hums out in thought, I can understand Kobayashi being a cat, but why are you a griffin or more so a lion with eagle wings? Naruto smiles, well, that's a long story. Naruto then begins to explain the origins of the tailed beasts, how they usually took on multiple animal features. Such as Kakyo, the dolphin horse, Gyuki, a mix of an ox and an octopus, and Kurama, a fox with rabbit ears. So, I'm pretty sure when I absorbed the chakra from my world, it decided that my characteristics fit being a lion and an eagle the best. Naruto says, leaning back against the edge of the spring. That's just a theory though, and I can consciously change the animal features I have. He adds, changing his tails to those of a fox. Lukoa nods in understanding, and the number of tails. Why do you have 12 when Kobayashi only has 2? It's a symbol of raw power, the more tails the more chakra and destructive ability you have, Naruto says before looking at his wife, though usually you automatically receive the number of tails tailored to your peak power, Kobayashi actually gained a tail when I started training her. Maybe the reason is because you keep giving me chakra, Kobayashi points out, making Naruto nod. That could be true. It's not like there's ever been a situation like this before. Lady Kobayashi. Toru suddenly calls out, making everyone face her, your right side. Why is it different? Taking some of her now white hair and looking at it, she shrugs, I have no idea, it wasn't like this the last time Naruto took off my seal. Toru gets closer, almost touching her mistress's right side before widening her eyes, it feels like the holy sword that God stabbed me with. The other's eyes widen at her statement, and Naruto puts a palm on Kobayashi's right side, feeling her chakra. You're right, I had assumed you just inherited traits from the goddess that was in my realm, but it is indeed the sword. Kobayashi raises an eyebrow, is there any way to take it out? Naruto shakes his head, nah, it seems tightly bound to you, and I don't want to risk what could happen if I break that bond. Naruto takes his palm away, besides, it's not like it's hurting you. It's just kind of there, maybe in slumber or whatever. Looking up at the clock, he stands up while carrying Kanna, who is almost nodding off, we can look into it more during your training later. It's getting late and Kanna's first day is tomorrow. Getting out of the spring, he begins drying her off before doing the same to himself as everyone else hops out of the spring themselves. By the time he finishes, Kanna had already dozed off and is clinging to Lukoa. I guess I'll put her to bed then, after that I'll join you all in bed. Ah, thank you for that, Naruto says with a grateful smile as Luko heads towards the small dragon's bedroom. 10 minutes later, Naruto, Kobayashi and Toru were in bed waiting for Luko as she stepped in the room. Sorry it took me a while. Kanna can be really clingy when she wants to, she says, crawling onto the bed and situating herself on top of Naruto, as his right side was taken by Kobayashi and his left by Toru. It's fine, let's just head to sleep, we all have a full day tomorrow after all, Naruto says as he puts his arms around Kobayashi and Toru, allowing them to snuggle deeper into his side, while Luko gets herself comfortable on his chest. Good night everyone. Good night. Good night Lord Naruto, Lady Kobayashi, Miss Luko. Night. Next morning. Naruto is awoken by something patting his cheek, opening his eyes he sees Kanna in her nightshirt staring at him. Naruto. Naruto. Time for school. Seeing the excitement on her face he couldn't help but smile softly. You're really looking forward to it huh? MHM, she replies nodding her head. Alright then, go brush your teeth while I try to get out of their grip, Naruto says gesturing towards Kobayashi and Luka, as he can see that Toru had gotten up already, most likely to make breakfast. Okay. Kanna says before getting up to get ready for the day. Alright you two, wake up. Naruto says as he begins patting Luko's head with one hand and gently shaking Kobayashi with the other. Kanna already came by and is excited for school, so we gotta get up. Groaning, Luko slowly opens one of her eyes. Good morning Naru moving up, she pecks him on the lips before smiling. How'd you sleep last night? She asks as she sits up on his lap, shrugging off the sheets, revealing her nude form. I slept well, now get off, I know what you're trying to do, we can't afford to stay in today. Naruto says while patting her thigh. Luko gains a saucy smirk and starts grinding herself along his lower half. Really? Naruto looks at her blankly. Yes really. Outing, the ex-goddess gets off his lap as Kobayashi finally opens her eyes. Ugh, what time is it? Time to get ready for the day, Naruto says, giving her a kiss. Luko and I are going to take Kanna to school, and Toru will fly you to work. Ah, okay then. Kobayashi says while getting up and heading towards the bathroom to freshen up. Good morning Luko. Morning Kobayashi, Luko says hopping on her back, leading the half-white half-red to carry her in a piggyback as Naruto follows behind. An hour and 30 minutes later everyone were outside ready for the day. Kobayashi, who has gone back to being a full red due to having her seal reapplied, was in her typical wear for work, while Naruto was wearing a white shirt with an orange jacket over. He was also wearing dark grey capris and black sandals. 10. Toru was wearing her typical maid uniform with her tail and horns out, and Kanna was wearing her goth loli clothes, with both her horns and tail disguised. She also had a yellow uniform cap on her head and her red backpack on her back. Luko had on a black long-sleeve sweater that has holes, leaving her shoulders exposed, white pants and pink shoes with her pink cap on her head and her horns out. 11. Have a good first day at school Kanna, Kobayashi says, patting her head, make sure to try and be friends with Georgie's little sister okay? Okay Kobayashi, have a good day at work, you too Lady Toru. Nodding with a smile, Toru sprouts her wings and covers herself in illusion magic before grabbing Kobayashi's hand and taking off into the sky. After the two disappear from view Naruto turns to Kanna with a smile, okay, you ready to head out? Yeah. She says excitedly, throwing both hands in the air. Okay then let's head out. You ready Luko? When you receive a nod from his fellow blonde, he takes hold of Kanna's hand and the little girl summons her wings. The trio then take off into the sky towards Kanna's new school. The Boruzuka Elementary. Landing a few blocks away as to not arouse suspicion, Naruto, Kanna and Luko are walking towards the school, Kanna in the middle, with Naruto holding her right hand and Luko doing the same with her left. Kanna of course wanted to be on Naruto's shoulders instead, but he managed to placate her by promising to let her on the way home, as well as brush her hair. When the trio arrived at the entrance to the school, Naruto kneels down in front of the small dragon and gives her a hug. Have a good day Kanna, and try to make a lot of friends. I will Naruto, she says while returning the hug. The school bell begins ringing, a sign that class is about to start. As the two separate Luko pats Kanna on the top of her head, have fun okay? Nodding, she runs inside so she won't be late on her first day making Naruto chuckle. I don't think I've ever seen her this excited about anything. Well, all dragons had thoughts of joining humans at one point in their lives, and it's nice to see her have that opportunity, Luko says with a soft smile as Kanna disappears into the building. So, what now? Luko asks, turning to face Naruto. Now, he begins as he covers himself in a gain jutsu to make him imperceptible to normal humans. We watch over her. Luko opens one of her eyes and grins, you're worried about her aren't you? Rubbing his cheek, Naruto chuckles, well, I can't help it. It's her first day after all. Fufu, okay then let's go find a vantage point to see into her classroom, she says as she covers herself in illusion magic. Finding a tree that had a good view of the room, Naruto sits on a branch while leaning his back on the trunk of the tree, and Lukoa sits in his lap. Oi, there's more than one branch in this tree. Tuckling, she settles herself in, maybe, but there's only one Naruto, she says with a teasing smirk, getting a sigh from Naruto. Fine, sit where you want, he says with exasperation, but still wraps his arms around her waist, only to make sure she doesn't fall, he thinks to himself in denial. Yay. She exclaims, resting her back against his chest as both look into the room as Kanna gives her introduction. I am Kanna Uzumaki, nice to meet you. After she says that, the class immediately begins to chatter about how cute she is. Where are you from? One boy asks with his hand raised. Is Uchiha? 12. Whoa, she's a foreigner. So cool. When Naruto hears her introduction, he can't help but feel a swell in his heart. That girl, no wonder she asked me where my clan was from, he mutters, while subconsciously holding a gently smiling Lukoa tighter. The two watch in content silence as the school day continues as Kanna interacts with her classmates and solve problems on the board. She looks like she's having fun, though the lessons seem too easy for her. Lukoa idly comments. Naruto nods in agreement, yeah, but it's about building bonds with kids her age, so she can have a normal life. Lukoa hums out in thought as the teacher announces it's time for PE, making the kids cheer as they go get changed into their sports uniforms. Minutes later, the kids were outside playing dodgeball, while Naruto and Lukoa moved to get a better view. Look at her go, she wiped out the whole team, Naruto says, running his hands through Lukoa's hair as she lays her head on his lap. That game looks fun, we should play it sometime, Lukoa agrees, watching as Kanna's teammates praise her, but notices a brown-haired girl looking on with jealousy as the teacher calls them in to resume lessons. Few hours later. Goodbye sensei. Goodbye everyone. Class was finally out and everyone was getting ready to head home. Naruto and Lukoa were about to get down from the tree to meet Kanna out front when they heard a girl's voice. Wait right there, Kanna Uzumaki. The girl who spoke has dark green eyes and wavy shoulder-length brown hair that has an orange daisy pin and is parted in the middle to reveal a shiny forehead which gleams in the light. She is wearing a light green long-sleeved shirt with a yellow neckline that has an image of a bunny, a pale orange skirt, white high socks and green shoes. Don't you think you've been standing out too much? Anna tilts her head, standing out. The boy in a red hoodie that was standing behind the girl speaks up, don't mind her Kanna, she just likes acting like a princess. Shut up. She replies to the boy with embarrassment on her face before turning to Kanna again. Georgie told me all about you and she was right. You're so cute it makes me want to hug and squeeze you. It's not fair. So that's Raiko, Naruto mutters with a sweat drop. I can see the relation, Lukoa just chuckles as they continue watching the two girls talk. Are you Raiko? Kanna asks, walking up to the girl. That's right, I'm Raiko Sakawa and I challenge you. Then let's be friends. Kanna states as she grabs the other girl's hands with her own. Wah wah wah, the girl begins stuttering with a blush on her cheeks. When she doesn't respond immediately, Kanna begins to tear up and put a sad look on her face. Do you not want to? Raiko begins panicking. No. I mean yes, I'll be your friend. Please don't cry, here I'll give you some candy. She says, pulling some from her skirt pocket. Naruto's eyebrow twitches as he watches Kanna fake cry. That's the exact same thing she did to me when we first met. Fufufu, you can't deny the results though. She got a new friend out of Georgie's little sister. Lukoa says with amusement in her voice as she stands up from her position in his lap, but it looks like all the kids are leaving, so let's meet her at the gate. Nodding, Naruto gets up as well, and the two disappear in similar blurs until they are about a block away from the school and walk the rest of the way. The two arrive in time to see Kanna walking out with a flustered Raiko's hand still in her own. How was your first day, Kanna? Naruto asks with slight amusement. Kanna holds up her other hand in a V for victory. I made lots of friends. That's good. Lukoa says as she rubs the girl's head. Kanna, are they your parents? Raiko asks, looking up at the two tall and foreign-looking blondes with wide eyes. Kanna shakes her head. Naruto is, Lady Lukoa is our maid. Ah. You're Naruto? The brunette asks with surprise, the one Georgie works for. Yes I am, and you must be Raiko, Georgie talks about you a lot, Naruto says with a smile. You're as much of a cutie as she said. Lukoa adds, scooping the girl up in a bear hug, while Kanna took her position on Naruto's shoulders, nodding at Lukoa's statement. Raiko is prettier ad. You're not even gonna wait till we leave. Naruto mutters with a deadpan and looks at Raiko, who is turning blue from suffocating in the ex-goddess's large breasts. Oi Lukoa, let her go, she's about to pass out. Looking down and seeing a ghost coming from the girl's mouth, she sets her back on the ground. He's sorry. Ah, I see you've met the Uzumaki family, Milady. Turning towards the familiar voice, the three Uzumaki see Georgie, except this time she is out of the maid uniform from the cafe and is wearing her own. It is an orange polka dot outfit with a white apron, she has on a white cap and has her brown hair in twin pigtails. She also has on black stockings that are striped with white shoes. It is nice to see you again Mr. Naruto, Miss Luko and Miss Kanna, how was your first day of school? She asks while patting a still coughing Raiko on the back. I made a lot of friends, Kanna says with pride, causing the young woman to smile. That's good, now I would love to talk more, but I must get home to prepare dinner, come Milady. Georgie says with a bow and takes hold of Raiko's hand. The young girl turns to Kanna who was riding on Naruto's shoulders. It was nice meeting you today Kanna. It was nice meeting you too Raiko, she replies waving goodbye. You ready to head home? Naruto asks looking up at Kanna. Yeah. Uzumaki in. It was evening and the three were waiting for Kobayashi and Toru to get home while Naruto was brushing Kanna's hair as they were watching TV. We're home. Anna hops from Naruto's lap and runs to the door, hugging the two by the waist. Welcome back, Kobayashi, Lady Toru. Patting the top of the girl's head, she smiles, did you have a good first day? Anna looks up and nods, I became friends with Raiko too. Good girl. Naruto and Luko walk up to the two, welcome back, Kobayashi and Toru. Looking at the dragon, he smiles, I assume you watched Kobayashi work today. Yes Millard, Lady Kobayashi is an amazing worker, everyone depends on her there. I know right, she's great isn't she? Naruto says gushing as he hugs Kobayashi from behind. Iridide's cheeks light up, stop it you. Hey? Kobayashi blushing. How cute. Luko exclaims hugging her from the front making her blush deeper. Alright that's enough teasing, I already have dinner ready for the two of you. Naruto says as he releases Kobayashi from their impromptu group hug. Toru bows, I am sorry I wasn't here to make dinner for when you came back from school. Naruto pats her head, nah it's fine, you make breakfast every day anyway. After you two eat we'll see if Kobayashi can finish her training today and maybe see what that sword is doing in her backyard. They were once again in the backyard with Kobayashi having changed into a black sports bra and black skin-tight yoga pants. Her seal was off, so her hair was back in its half-red half-white state and her cat ears and tails were twitching in anticipation as she waited for Naruto to begin. Okay, let's continue where we left off yesterday. Push your chakra underneath you while imagining flight. Okay, closing her eyes in slight concentration, she begins to lift off the ground, steadier than yesterday. Good. You're improving rapidly. Naruto says as he floats up next to her, taking hold of her hands. Now we're going to try something I thought would help you practice. Guiding one of her hands to his shoulder and putting one of his to her waist, she raises an eyebrow, dancing. Yup, it's how some genin refined their water walking back in my world. Naruto says as the two begin swaying in the air. 13. Sounds like an excuse to take a girl out on a date, Kobayashi says with a cheeky smile as she twirls with a flourish. Bringing her in close, Naruto smiles, well, not like I had any luck with girls in the past. She chuckles, so different from the Casanova you are now. In response Naruto playfully pushes, making her float away, and surprisingly she wasn't wobbling like usual. Gaining a large smile, she begins flying around, zipping back and forth until she crashes into Naruto, giving him a huge hug. No way, it actually worked. She exclaims smiling brightly as Naruto lowers the both of them to the ground. You did great, far better than I expected. The three dragons walk up to them with excitement at the display. That looked amazing my lord and lady. May I try? Me too. Me too. Me as well. Naruto chuckles, okay, I'll dance with each of you. With a puff of smoke 3 copies of himself materialize. One of them scoops Kanna into his arms and onto his shoulder, the other grabs Toru by the waist, and the last picks Luko up in a bridal carry. When each has a dragon in his hand they fly up into the air and begin dancing with their respective partners. Well, ain't that a sight, Kobayashi says with a small smile as she watches the dancing, each dragon having the time of their lives, laughing and twirling with a clone of Naruto. Naruto taps her right side and says, yup, and while they have fun, we're gonna figure out what's up with that sword in you. Lifting her arm, he begins inspecting it. Do you feel any different? Specifically on your right side. Closing her eyes and feeling out her chakra she nods slightly, yay, it's kinda faint, but it's there. Deciding to try and manipulate the foreign energy, her palm begins to glow, and when it dies down, it reveals a European-style sword that looks like a smaller copy of the one that was stuck in Toru. Kobayashi looks at the sword wide-eyed, whoa, she begins inspecting the weapon she just summoned. Looking over its sharp edge she begins doing test swings, noticing it seemed to suit her perfectly. I guess we should start sword lessons as well, plus I still have to teach you how to hide your animal features, Naruto says putting a finger on his chin looking at the blade. Looking up at the sky and seeing each dragon still dancing with their own clone Naruto, Kobayashi gains a smirk, how about later? walking up to him and running a finger over his chest. We finally have some alone time. Naruto looks at her with a raised eyebrow. Wasn't it your idea to bring multiple women into this relationship? Yes, but that doesn't mean I don't want to be selfish every now and then. Taking hold of his hand, she begins to escort him inside, excitement clear on her face. Now come on, there's a shower waiting for us. Naruto rolls his eyes as he lets his wife drag him into the house. Yes dear. Shower. Kobayashi had her head tilted back, letting the warm water soak her face, moaning in pleasure as Naruto sucked on her small breasts. Back before their relationship had become intimate, she had been worried about her small size, jealous of girls with chests that always seemed to grow, and feeling that due to this, she'd never find anyone. But ever since Naruto came into her life, he always showered her with compliments on her looks and even her body type. Not to mention how he'd play with her chest. Tweaking, pinching, sucking, biting, he'd do it all, even once saying he couldn't wait till milk came from them. Lemon happened. 2 hours later. The married couple were still in the shower, but by this time the water had long become cold. It was thanks to their lovemaking and chakra bodies that they didn't feel its effects. Kobayashi had her back against a tile wall, legs wrapped around Naruto's waist and arms around his neck as he fucked her, sharpened nails digging into his back and leaving gouges that were already being healed. She tiredly moans out as he thrusts into her. No more. I'm almost done. He grunts out, humping until he does a final thrust, adding more fump to her overstuffed and overflowing fund. Both are breathing heavily as they look into each other's eyes. That was so intense. I thought my mind would break, Kobayashi says breathlessly. Naruto nods. Yeah, I definitely got carried away there. Are you okay? Well, besides being numb from the waist down, I feel fine. I told you not to complain. He says, giving her a look. I'm not complaining, merely stating a fact. She says as she tries to stand but has to lean against Naruto. Anyway, let's get you cleaned up so we can go to bed. Okay. But that the two finally begin to use the shower for what it was actually made for and get each other clean. After the shower the two move towards the bedroom, Naruto carrying Kobayashi in a piggyback. While in their way they run into Luko, who was completely naked and covered in foam, being carried by the clone she danced with and Tori next to her in the same position, except with foam leaking from just her mouth and sore-looking beat. The two clones turn towards the original and wave. Hey boss, it looks like they all had the same idea of getting some alone time, huh? Naruto nods. Yeah, I can see that, but what happened to Luko? Shadow clone gangbang. He looks at the clone who spoke with a raised eyebrow, prompting it to explain. We went for 4 rounds, and she was still rearing to go, so I summoned 4 clones, and all 5 of us fucked her till she finally passed out. He says with a shrug, causing Naruto to sweat drop and Kobayashi to gain an interested look. I'm going to have to ask him to do that to me. I can barely handle one of him, but 5 a bit of drool begins leaking from her mouth at the thought. Okay, well anyway, just wash them up and put them in the bed, then you can dispel. Naruto orders and the 2 clones give him a salute before walking towards the baths. We should check on Kanna before going to bed, he says as he and Kobayashi go to the small dragon's room. When they open the door they see a sight that nearly melts their hearts. Kanna is in her sleepwear cuddling up to a younger version of Naruto. The two were holding on to one another, snoring peacefully. No doubt Kanna asked for a dancing partner that was her size, and she ended up getting sleepy, prompting the younger clone to cuddle with her. That's just so adorable, isn't it, Naru? Kobayashi gushes with a large smile. Yeah, it is. He has a small smile on his face. Seeing a younger version of himself not sleeping alone really hit him hard. Growing up with nobody and being forced to act out to get even a little attention, even if it was negative. It mirrored Kanna's own life and only makes him want to give her a happy life even more. Right there, watching his now adopted daughter sleep peacefully with a smile on her face, Naruto makes a promise. He'll protect her happiness with his very being. And not just hers, Toru's and Luko's as well. They joined his and Maiko's family, he'll be there for them no matter what. Even if he had to fight all the gods from their original world. Closing the door, he turns and walks towards the master bedroom, subconsciously holding his wife's thighs tighter as she nuzzles into his warmth, her 2 tails intertwining with his 12. Hey Maiko. I love you. Kobayashi gains a small smile. I love you too, Naru. A few weeks have passed since Kanna had her first day of school, and she quickly became the best of friends with Raiko. It had even gotten to the point that Naruto suggested they tell the young girl their secret, considering Georgie already knew. While Kanna was a bit hesitant at first, she eventually told Raiko the truth and showed her dragon form. Instead of freaking out like she thought she would, Raiko hugged Kanna and began gushing over how soft and fluffy she was, and since that day the two girls only became closer, often going to the park together after school or flying through the air, with Luko watching over them of course. The two would also come over to the inn to do homework together, with Naruto or Toru taking Raiko home after. There would also be play dates every weekend, something Georgie always took advantage of. However, today Kanna came home with a dark look on her face, while Raiko had tears in her eyes. Kobayashi raises an eyebrow as she sips the tea Toru brought for her, and Naruto, did something happen at school today? Kanna says nothing as she climbs onto Naruto's shoulders and settles down, while Lukoa brings Raiko to the table to sit next to them, before answering Kobayashi's question with a small smile. Kanna and Raiko got into a little spat with some guys that were playing dodgeball at the park they were at. They almost hit Raiko with a ball, so we challenged them to a duel. Kanna says as she begins to recharge with Naruto's chakra. Lukoa chuckles, it was quite entertaining to watch. Raiko even called one of them a black-haired mama's boy and the other an American gorilla, she says, while rubbing the top of the girl's head, much to her embarrassment. Toru sets a cup of tea down in front of Lukoa, as well as juice for both the girls, while Kobayashi smiles at the young girl, so you picked a fight and they actually went for it, huh? Did you gather a team already? Kanna takes a sip from her juice box that Naruto held up for her before shaking her head, we weren't able to, Raiko's not popular. Taking a seat next to Naruto, Toru raises her hand into the air, I'll be on your team then. I can't have those humans taking us lightly. Lukoa smiles widely while also putting her hand up, I'll join too. Naruto sets down his cup and smiles, that does sound like fun, don't you think, Kobayashi? She chuckles at the excitement felt by everyone, yeah it does. When is it happening, Kanna? Tomorrow. Well, it looks like all of us will come pick you two up from school tomorrow, then we can show those guys not to mess with the Uzumakis. Yeah. The young dragon yells as she throws her hands up. That's my girl. Now you and Raiko go start your homework while Toru gets dinner ready. Nodding, the small dragon clambers down from his shoulders and grabs hold of her friend's hand, come on Raiko, let's go. The two girls then leave, making sure to grab their school bags on the way to Kanna's room. When the two girls round the corner, Naruto turns to face his lovers at the table, specifically Toru. I know Lukoa knows how to play dodgeball, but do you, Toru? The blonde chaos dragon rubs the back of her head in embarrassment, I think so. It has something to do with dodging cannonballs, right? Naruto deadpans while the other two women begin chuckling, alright, come outside with me, I'm teaching you how to play, so you don't kill someone. Do you two want to come as well? Not this time, Naru, there's a sake bottle with my name on it. Kobayashi perks up at that, you got room for one more? Yup. Shaking his head as the two walk off to drink together, he turns to Toru, guess it's just you and me then. Let's go out back. Yes, Lord Naruto. Getting up from the table, Naruto walks toward their yard with Toru following closely behind. Once they reach their destination, Naruto turns back around to find Toru had changed from her typical maid uniform to wearing a pair of black tights, a black sports bra that shows a lot of cleavage, and a pair of white tennis shoes. Raising an eyebrow, the blonde god cracks a smile, a little excited are we? The maid gives a salute with a large smile on her face, of course, it's going to be like training, right? I've always loved doing that since I was young. Clapping his hands together, Naruto creates a dodgeball using creation of all things, it was the same for me too, did you have a training partner? Toru looks down with a somewhat somber expression, I did, but we got into an argument and have been at each other's throats ever since. Naruto walks over and puts a hand on her shoulder in an attempt to comfort her, I understand, the same thing happened to me as well. Really? What happened? He backs away and smiles softly, he sacrificed himself for me before we could settle our differences. Toru's eyes widen in surprise, really? I'm sorry. The blonde god waves it off, don't worry about it, it happened a while ago, and Maiko helped me through it. I was honestly lucky she found me that night, even if it was a complete fluke. But enough of the sad talk, you need to learn how to play. Shaking off her previously somber mood, she gets into a ready stance with determination blazing in her red eyes, I'm ready to learn. That's the spirit. Now, it's a very simple game, all you have to do is throw the ball to hit your opponent with while also dodge so you don't get hit yourself, he explains before tossing the ball to her, which she easily catches. You can also catch the ball without any penalty. Any questions before we do a mock game? We gotta be quick about it so we can start dinner soon. Toru looks away shyly with a blush on her face, about that. What's wrong? Naruto is cut off as he is tackled against a tree with a soft pair of pink lips on his own. Putting his hands on her hips as the kiss ends, Naruto looks at his maid with a raised eyebrow, now what was that all about? I lied, my lord, she mutters as she holds him around the waist and snuggles into his chest. Naruto pats the top of her head with a smile, you already knew how to play dodgeball, didn't you? When he feels her nod into his chest he chuckles, you just wanted to get me alone, huh? Toru hugs him tighter, is that a bad thing? I had already asked permission from Lady Kobayashi and Miss Lukoa, and they agreed. You know you don't need permission to spend time with me, Toru. But I'm your maid and Lukoa is above me in strength. Naruto grabs her chin to make her look into his eyes. I don't care about any of that stuff, I care for all of you equally, so if you ever need anything from me just ask, okay? Okay, then will you have sex with me right now? A blush forms on her face as she asks the question. Naruto smiles and he crosses his fingers, summoning a clone, get started on making dinner, I think we'll be a while. The clone throws up a salute before blurring back to the inn, and Naruto turns his attention back to the blushing blonde dragon in his arms. Lowering his hands from her waist to her ass, he gives it a squeeze making Toru moan slightly and meld her body closer to his. Tilting his head down, he brings her in for another kiss, twisting his tongue around hers before picking her up and putting her up against a tree. Breaking the kiss, Naruto latches onto her neck, sucking, licking and biting her pale skin, purposely trying to mark her while playing with her chest, making sure to pinch her nipples through her top. Moaning, Toru wraps her arms around his torso and one of her legs around his waist, bumping her soaked crotch against his hardened one. Please Miller, just fuck me, she begs as she grinds herself against him, I need you in me right now. Nodding, Naruto grabs hold of her black tights and aggressively rips a hole in them, exposing her wet slit to the air. Lemon happened. Stomping his foot on the ground, a multitude of trees and grass grows from the ground, so the forest looks the same as it was before. He then picks Toru up in a bridal carry and kisses her on her forehead. Looking toward the sky, he sees the sun dipping below the horizon and sighs, it's a good thing I sent a clone to make dinner, and it looks like it got Raiko home safely too, he mutters to himself as he walks back toward the inn, so he can give Toru a bath. Upon arriving he sees Kobayashi and Luko looking at him with knowing grins on their faces, you have fun. Naruto rolls his eyes as he heads toward the bath with both women following him, you two knew she'd corner me like this didn't you? Gyufu, when Toru came and asked us for permission it was a little surprising, but we thought you'd enjoy it. Did you not? Naruto opens the door and lays Toru in the tub before turning on the water. No comment. Now go wait in the bed, I'll bring her there shortly. Both women giggle and kiss him on either side of his cheek. They then leave the bath so that Naruto can clean Toru. It's a shame they can't have more fun with him, but there's always next time. Next day. It was the next day and the Uzumaki family were prepared for their duel. Picking up both Kanna and Raiko from school before heading to the playground. Upon arrival they see the people Raiko and Kanna got into a fight with. You brought some friends squirt. At the taunt of the man Naruto guesses Raiko referred to as an American gorilla, Kanna begins to glare as does Toru, but Luko and Naruto look at the boys with identical smiles on their faces as the blonde god steps up. Are you gonna talk all day or do you want to start already? You're on, old man. Various tick marks appear on Naruto's forehead and his earlier smile becomes strained, I'm only 25 you know. Kobayashi snickers from the sidelines with Raiko, remember, don't kill them. What followed next could only be called a one-sided massacre as the group of young men were easily taken out one by one, none of them were spared, and eventually the men retreated, swearing their revenge. Raiko runs up to Kanna and grabs hold of her hands, you guys were amazing out there. It was easy, they were just trash after all. Kobayashi sweat drops at what Kanna says, oi, well that's true you shouldn't say it like that. Naruto yawns and stretches his arm, well that was boring. I agree Lord Naruto, I still haven't had enough yet. Me neither. Naruto grins and picks up the ball, you guys wanna play another game? No human constraints this time. Yeah. Kanna exclaims as she throws both hands in the air. Kobayashi places a hand on the ground and black script crawls out and forms a circle around her and Raiko. A semicircle of energy envelopes the two. Crossing her arms, the Redeed gives a thumbs up, go ahead and have fun, I already set up a barrier around Raiko and I. Alright let's split up into teams. Wasting no time at all, Kanna crawls up Naruto's back in order to sit on his shoulders, I'm on Naruto's team. That's no fair Kanna. I wanted to be on Lord Naruto's team so I could fight against Miss Lukoa. Kanna sticks out her tongue tauntingly in response, making Toru's cheeks light up in indignation, fine. I wanted to test how far you've come anyway. Bring it on Lady Toru. Naruto chuckles and creates a whistle that he tosses to Kobayashi, blow it so we can start. Here's the ball Kanna. Heading off Naruto's back the little dragon grabs the rubber ball and gets into a throwing stance while Luko and Toru get ready to either dodge or catch her throw. Locking eyes with Toru, Kanna jumps high in the air and throws the ball at superhuman speed, aiming for the blonde's face, which was easily caught and swiftly returned. Conjuring her wings, Kanna swiftly dives out of the way of the oncoming ball, leading for Naruto to catch it and send it hurtling toward Luko, who grabs it from the air and locks onto the small dragon's form with a smile. Sorry little one. Firing the ball at Kanna, the small girl puts out both her hands in an attempt to catch the ball, but it bounces off, landing in the floor, making it so she is out. Kanna pouts slightly before going over to Raiko and Kobayashi as the two try to cheer her up. I think you did great Kanna. Yeah, don't worry about it, we'll get you ice cream when they're done. Okay. Back at the dodgeball court, Naruto crouches down in order to dodge the ball Toru threw. Quickly picking it up, he rockets it back, pushing chakra throughout his arm to give it more power. Trying to dodge it, Toru leans to the side, but it still manages to scrape her cheek as it goes by. Hanging her head down and pouting just like Kanna did, Toru walks to stand next to Kobayashi and the two girls. Better luck next time, Toru. The blonde dragon pumps a fist in the air with determination. I won't lose next time, Lady Kobayashi. From the court, Naruto and Luko smile, but soon face each other. Well, you did say you wanted to play dodgeball when we saw Kanna do it at school. Luko bends down and picks up the ball. Well, it looks like I got my wish. Indeed you did. The two blondes then continue their game of dodgeball, which devolved into a game of catch. While it started off as normal, they gradually increased the power and speed behind each throw until magic and chakra began to be used as well. Luko holds out both of her hands to catch the ball Naruto threw at her, sliding backwards from the force before sending it rocketing back in Naruto's direction. Grinning, the blonde god effortlessly catches it with one hand. Come on Luko, I know you can't do better than that. Empowering some chakra in his arm, he winds back and throws it high in the air, making her fly off after it. Naruto takes off into the sky as well until he reaches the clouds where Luko is waiting for him with a grin of her own. This is actually pretty fun, Naru. Yeah, it sure is. How about a spar? It's been a while for me and it looks like you're rearing to go. Luko's eyes slightly open with excitement when she hears that from her fellow god. Nodding rapidly, she tosses away the ball before charging Naruto with her fist beat back. Crossing his arms over his face, Naruto blocks her punch before snapping his leg up to hit Luko in the chin. Seeing this coming, the blonde goddess dodges to the side, then opens her mouth wide while channeling magic. Water dragon's roar. A powerful jet of water bursts from her open maw directly into Naruto's face. Blocking once again, Naruto flies backwards and puffs out his cheeks, wind style. Vacuum bullets. Several balls of compressed air fly toward the dragon goddess as she dips and dives through the air, then turning around and inhaling one of them before spitting it back out larger than before, causing Naruto to dodge out of the way. He now looks at the ex-goddess wearily. I thought dragons only had one elemental affinity. Jufu, maybe normal dragons, but I'm a goddess Naru, I have three. I don't suppose you'll tell me what the last one is. Opening her eyes slightly, she giggles again. Why don't you find out? Extending her nails into claws, Luko teleports to his side and takes a swipe at his torso, ripping into his clothes but not leaving a mark on his skin. Naruto responds by lifting his leg and kicking her in the stomach, making Luko cough up a glob of spit and double over before hitting her back with a double hammer fist that sends her crashing to the floor. Slowly getting up from the crater her body made, Luko begins chuckling as her pink cap falls from her head. Hey Naru, stretching her arm out to the side, a dark blue portal comes into existence. Let's move this somewhere else, okay? I want to get a little more wild. Naruto smirks down at her. Fine by me, I've wanted to fight you since you told me about how you used to fight other goddesses. He then turns to everyone in the barrier. Kobayashi. I'm gonna head out with Luko, we'll be back soon. Okay, have fun. The Redeed waves at her husband as he flies into the portal with Luko before turning to Toru and the two kids in the barrier with her. How about we get ice cream while Naruto and Luko have fun, huh? Kanna and Raiko throw their hands up in excitement at the mention of ice cream while Toru glances at the portal the two gods flew through. Lady Kobayashi, I think I'd rather go and watch the two fight instead. That's fine Toru, go ahead. I can watch Kanna and Raiko. Bowing in thanks, the blonde dragon unfurls her wings and flies into the portal just as it closes. Alright girls, let's go. We can also watch a movie after. Yay. Other world. Arriving through the portal, Toru sees the two gods standing across from each other on a grassy plain. It's been a while since I've let loose, so I had to move us to the place I used to fight as a goddess. Naruto looks around and sees the rolling green hills and clear blue sky, but spots Toru out of the corner of his eye. Guess she really wanted to see us fight. He then turns his attention toward Luko. This is a nice plain, it's a shame what we're about to do to it. Luko giggles and flares her godly aura before opening both of her heterochromic eyes. It used to be a mountain range, she then blurs out of existence and reappears by Naruto's side with punch aiming for his cheek. Acting quickly, Naruto catches the fist and looks at her with a smirk. We didn't even say start yet. Can you blame a girl for being a little excited? You've been releasing your aura since we got here. You're trying to rile me up, aren't you? He guilty as charged, increasing the grip on her fist. Naruto tosses her into the air before flying up in pursuit. Tumbling through the air, Luko uses her magic to regain her balance and shooting off toward a fast approaching Naruto. The two meet in the middle and begin a fierce exchange of punches and kicks, neither getting a clear hit on the other until Luko manages to strike Naruto in the stomach with a knee that doubles him over, which she then follows up with a spinning back kick to his right cheek, sending him flying into the ground with a large crash. Exploding up from the crater, he blitzes Luko, who is caught off guard by his sudden increase in speed and is unable to dodge the fist he lodges in her gut, nor the uppercut he lands on her chin that sends her flying away head over heels. Disappearing in a yellow flash, he reappears behind the goddess, prepared to send her flying with another punch, but Luko suddenly twists around, delivers a strike of her own, hitting him in the cheek as he does the same to her. The two gods are sent blasting away from each other and land in their own separate craters. Simultaneously getting up from their own holes in the ground, the two gods stare at one another, heterochromic eyes meet gold ones with a crossed pupil. Luko suddenly feels something wet come from her lip and dribble down her chin. Touching two fingers to her face, she takes a look at them, and her eyes widen. Blood. She can do nothing but stare at the sticky red liquid clinging to her fingers as her heart starts to beat faster. When was the last time I spilt blood? 2,000 years ago. 3,000. Her eyes begin pulsing as her magic begins to flare wildly. She then looks to Naruto, who's currently smirking at her with blood leaking from his mouth as well. His long blonde ponytail has come undone, letting his hair blow in the wind. Luko couldn't help but burst out in laughter at the situation. It's been so long since she's fought someone, but she can already feel her old self coming back, even if it's just for this little spar. So for old time's sake, she decides to do something she hasn't done in over a millennia. Don her weapons and armor. Calming down, she looks to her fellow god once more. How about we take it up a notch? It's been too long since I've had a fight like this, and I'm eager to stretch my wings, so to say. Naruto chuckles as he wipes the blood from his chin. I was about to say the same thing. Let's do it. At the same time, both gods erupt in a pillar of light, covering their forms and forcing Toru to shield her eyes from the sheer brightness of their godly power. Opening her eyes, she widens them when she sees the new forms both have taken. Luko is now dressed in a traditional Aztec warrior garb that consists of a red skirt with a single piece of green fabric to cover her crouch, a blue belt tied around her waist, a short poncho-like cape that barely covers her bare breasts, leaving her midriff exposed, golden arm guards and knee pads adorned with red feathers. Brown sandals and a three-pointed crown with long green feathers jutting out from each point. Under her lip lies a single green gemstone, while around her head lies a brown headband with a circular piece of gold in the middle. Her multicolored hair is separated into several strands by golden bangles, and she has multiple gold necklaces around her neck. Finally, in her left hand she has a shield that has its edges lined with red fur, with several ornaments hanging from the bottom, and in her right hand is a mikuahutl, a wooden club with several shards of obsidian embedded in its side. Naruto is in his chakra mode, but it has changed from 5 years ago. He has a high-collared jacket that stops in the middle of his bare torso and has multiple black markings on the sleeves. On his legs are a pair of black baggy pants, golden tabi socks and black sandals. His hair goes back into a ponytail and his whiskers thicken slightly, turning gold. A pair of lion ears pop out from the top of his head as golden eagle wings burst from his back and 12 tails sprout from his lower back that he quickly retracts as he doesn't want to give Luko something to grab him with. Around his neck is a necklace with 6 magatama, and on his forehead is a ninja headband with the kanji for shinobi on it. Glaring his chakra once more, 9 black orbs appear behind his back and purple armor manifests on his waist, shins and right hand. Holding his armored hand out, the black balls begin spinning rapidly before melding together to form a massive pitch black sword, while in the palm of his other hand, a slit forms. The great sword he wields is a combination of the 7 swords of the mist, since he felt it would be better to have one with all abilities rather than having to switch each time. Thus the demon destroyer, named in honor of the first missing nin he ever encountered, was Maid. Toru is in awe at the sight of the two gods' transformations and can feel the very air thick with mana, so much so it causes her skin to tingle. So much power is this how Miss Luko was in the past. And Lord Naruto is at her same level. The two gods stare into each other's eyes, neither moving a muscle until they both disappear, moving faster than Toru's eyes could hope to keep up with, only catching after images and seeing the occasional spark in the air from their weapons clashing. Hefting his sword, Naruto does an overhead swing aimed at the top of Luko's skull, which is swiftly blocked with her shield. Bringing her arm around, Luko slams her club into his side, biting deep into his skin, drawing blood and sending him flying to the side. Doing multiple flips in the air, Naruto lands in a crouch and brings up his sword just in time to block another strike from Luko. Seeing that her stomach is open, he snaps his foot out, landing a blow and doubling the goddess over as she spits up blood. Holding up his large sword, an aura of chakra coats the blade in the form of a hammer. Hiramekure. Hammer form. Swinging down the flat of the blade, Naruto sends the ex-goddess through the ground, creating a large trench. Looking down at the deep hole, Naruto holds the side Lukoa managed to hit with her weapon as it steams and rapidly heals. He then widens his eyes and hastily dives out of the way as Lukoa comes rocketing from the hole covered in a golden aura without her headdress and copious amounts of blood flowing from the head wound Naruto gave her with his last attack. She has a sharp-toothed grin on her face as she looks down at the ninja. That hurt a lot. Naru holding her obsidian club in the air, it becomes coated in water magic, water dragon's flying scales. Swinging her sword rapidly, sharp blades of water fly from her club in Naruto's direction. Reacting quickly, the blonde shinobi stabs his blade into the ground to form a shield as he channels chakra into it, Samahata. His large sword's blade becomes scaled like a shark skin, and upon contact the blades of water are absorbed directly into the blade. Once the bombardment is over, Naruto picks up his sword once again and channels chakra into it, and a long razor-thin wire comes from the end of the hilt. Nabari. Massacre method formation. Throwing the blade as hard as he could, Lukoa begins flying around in order to dodge the oncoming blade, while Naruto uses chakra sent through the ninja wire to guide it remotely, eventually cornering her. Just as she brings her shield up to block, Naruto begins to send lightning-natured chakra up the wire and into the blade. Kiba. Flow. As soon as the now lightning-covered blade makes contact, it easily rips through the shield, giving Lukoa a deep gash in her left arm and forcing her to abandon her shield, lest she lose the appendage altogether. While she's distracted, he continues to manipulate the sword and wire, eventually tying her up midair. Hatching his blade again, Naruto is about to send another burst of lightning chakra in order to stun her, but Lukoa's eyes glow brightly and the wind picks up around her. Wind Dragon's Wingbeat. Wings made of wind burst from her back and shred the wires that bind her. She then coats her club in wind magic. Wind Dragon's Fang. In response, Naruto lifts up his blade to block the attack as Lukoa rockets toward him with the force of a meteor. However, he grits his teeth as he notices she's cutting through his weapon. Eventually Lukoa is able to slice clean through the blade and would have cleaved through Naruto's torso had he not been able to angle his body to the side as she passes by, making a gash as she follows through with her swing. Damn. She actually cut through it. Holding his bleeding chest, he begins dodge her wild swings, using what's left of his sword to parry what he could as he tries to create distance while his wound heals. Though it was for naught as Lukoa uses her wings created from wind to boost her speed and send a dropkick right to the middle of his chest, causing even more blood to gush from his wound and spill from his mouth. Naruto spits up blood as his body is sent bouncing along the ground before he stops himself by driving his sword into the earth. Using the fact he was sent to the other side of the battlefield, he stands up and puts the broken blade to his wound as it then begins absorbing his blood and repairing itself. Seeing as his blade is now fully repaired, he flaps his wings and rockets toward Lukoa, who meets him in the middle. Both have huge grins on their faces as they begin a dance of death with their weapons once again, clashing and letting sparks fly as their weapons meet. As the fight continues, Naruto takes to the sky to once again to gain some distance, but Lukoa is hot on his trail. Twirling his sword around, he blocks a swipe from her obsidian club before retaliating with a kick to her jaw. Using the opportunity to escape, he flies higher into the air and takes in a deep breath. Lava style. Scorching stream rock jutsu. Expelling a large amount of lava from his mouth, it quickly solidifies into several boulders of molten rock that head straight for the former Aztec goddess. Smirking at the challenge, Lukoa lifts up her club and begins deflecting or destroying the boulders one by one. If Naruto wasn't currently fighting her, he would be entranced by her fluid and elegant movements, but instead decides to make 8 clones who all lift up their arms and start to gather chakra. Sage Art. Super-tailed beast Rasen Shuriken. 9 different Rasen Shuriken are formed by a clone, each reminiscent of the tailed beasts that once resided in his old world, from Shukaku's magnetic sand to Jaiuki's ink and Kakyo's steam. Winding back, Naruto and his 8 clones heave the jutsu directly at Lukoa, who has just finished destroying the last boulder. Widening her eyes at the size and power of techniques headed her way, she decided to use her final magic type. Bracing herself, she brings her hands together as a golden ball of concentrated magic forms Celestial Dragon's brilliant star. The ball expands to an enormous degree before she winds back and throws it toward flying orbs above her, colliding in a huge explosion encompasses the battlefield and sends Toru flying back. Once the explosion dies down, the 2 gods can be seen in the middle of a massive crater. The power of the explosion has knocked both out of the sky and destroyed their weapons. Lukoa is fading into golden flakes, while Naruto's turned to dust. Moving quickly, Naruto flashes behind her, and the slit in his left palm finally opens, revealing a purple eye with a ripple pattern throughout and 9 Tomo. Almighty push. Before she could react, an invisible force slams into her back, sending her flying into the air as she tries to gain control of her body. Once she finally does, she looks down to see Naruto with his open left hand, or more specifically the eye inside of it pointed in her direction. Planetary devastation. Large chunks of earth break from the ground and fly into the sky, hurtling straight for Lukoa, as she is the center of a gravitational field Naruto created with his jutsu. As Lukoa is being encased in rock, her eyes go wide and begin glowing brightly as her body becomes covered in golden mana just as the last piece falls into place, creating a small moon. Naruto closes his fist tightly when his jutsu finished, but knows better than to keep his guard down as he felt her mana spike. Now what'll you do? Dottie wonders to himself. Just as he finishes that thought, he hears a loud rumble followed by an even louder roar. The miniature moon suddenly bursts open as a being far greater in size than anything he's ever seen before emerges. It is a large amphitheater dragon with broad colorful feathered wings, a mask-like skull and a long body that seems to go on for miles. He could only assume it's Lukoa as the mana feels the exact same. Holy shit, she makes the 10 tails look like a baby, but I might as well go all out too. Clapping his hands together, Naruto begins yelling out in exertion as he molds his chakra. A large pillar of golden light shoots into the sky from his position before it begins expanding in width until it shrinks back in to form Naruto's new avatar. A large ethereal golden lion with giant wings on its back and 12 tails swinging behind it. The construct of chakra then stands up on its hind legs as purple armor surrounds it from all sides, even crawling up the tails and wings, turning them purple as well. Finally, a gem forms on the lion's forehead as a place for Naruto to reside as he controls it. Looking up at Lukoa, he notices how large her form truly is. Even though his construct is bigger than what the 10 tails was, he still feels like a child when staring at her, but gets into a fighting stance nonetheless. Seeing that Naruto is ready to fight once more, Lukoa lunges at him with deceptively fast speeds, especially for her size. Diving out of the way, he goes for a counter with a punch to the side of her body, but she easily avoids it and begins coiling around him like an actual snake. Lukoa then begins to squeeze, making cracks form in his armor. Thinking quickly, Naruto grabs the portion of her body that's around his avatar's neck and swings his armored tails around to hit her in the face, causing the ex-goddess to loosen her stranglehold from the pain. Naruto then punches her away with a mighty roar, but Lukoa come rushing back with a flap of her wings, with her jaws wide open to take a bite out of him, which he barely gets out of the way of. The two then stare at each other before nodding. They will settle this in one move. Moving further away from one another with Naruto taking to the sky, mana and chakra flare to a massive degree. Lukoa opens her mouth as a mass of golden magic forms between her jaws. Naruto creates 2 more constructs that meld with his original one, giving it 3 faces and 6 arms. He then raises them in the air and gathers chakra. Celestial dragons roar. Sage Art. Ultra Big Bull Rasen Shuriken. Lukoa fires off a massive beam of golden magic just as Naruto throws the 2 Rasen Shuriken that form in his hands. Toru watches with bated breath as the 2 godly techniques approach each other, and instinctively she puts up a protective barrier around herself, and good thing too, as the explosion caused by the 2 colliding will forever be ingrained in her memory. The sheer size of it could not be put into words, as the planes that were once there have been turned into one giant crater with no life, plant or otherwise, to speak of. Except 2. Slowly both gods get up from the ground. Lukoa's battle outfit no longer contains her modesty, as her top has been ripped to shreds, while Naruto's jacket has disappeared, leaving him shirtless as well. Both are covered in scratches and bruises and are bleeding heavily from the backlash of the attack. Breathing heavily, both gods look into each other's eyes with determination. They both decide to settle it with one more charge. Getting into a stance, they both run at each other with their fists beat back, yelling a battle cry, and upon meeting in the middle both launch forward, only to hit each other in the face and immediately collapse side by side afterward. Nothing is said between the two as they both stare into the sky that cleared because of the magnitude of their attacks, until Lukoa decides to speak up. Naruto. That was the most fun I've had in centuries. Naruto chuckles as he puts on a bright smile. Then we should do it again sometime. Lukoa closes her eyes, putting them back to their usual state with a smile of her own. Yeah, we should. And by the way, we're so fucking after I wake up. Naruto sweat drops after hearing that, only for it to get bigger when the sound of snoring comes from beside him. Sighing, he painfully gets up, taking Lukoa into a bridal carry as Toru finally flies over. You beat Miss Lukoa, Toru says with wide eyes as she sees the strongest woman she's ever known sleeping in her master's arms. Amazing. Naruto nods. She was definitely the toughest fight I've ever had, and I'm currently many times stronger than what I was when I left my old world, but I'm tired and don't have enough energy to get home. Could you make a portal for us? Of course, my lord. Swiping her hand, a dark blue portal opens up and both walk through, arriving at the inn. On a far mountaintop overlooking the battle side, a woman dressed in just a tattered cloak with long blue hair and 2 dark blue horns sticking from either side of her head sighs as she dissipates an invisible barrier. You haven't changed at all, Lukoa, but you should have at least thrown up a barrier when you brought that new god here to fight, though his mana did feel delicious. Her sleepy yellow eyes stare into the portal Toru had created to get home, and an idea forms in her head. I'm sure she won't mind if I come along as well. It'll be just like old times. Licking her lips, the unknown woman flies from her perch and dives into the portal. After she disappears, another being arrives, a blue serpent-like dragon with a brown trident for a tail. Looking at the rip in space-time and feeling the mana of who created it, it nods its head, travels through it as well. Uzumaki in. It looks like Lady Kobayashi hasn't come back with Kanna and Raiko yet. That's fine, I'll just head to a room upstairs with Lukoa so we can both sleep off our fatigue without getting our namal sheets bloody. Wake me up if you need anything, okay? Yes, Millard, have a good rest. She says as she throws up a salute to Naruto as he waves behind his back on his way to the stairs so they could rest in a guest room as to not get blood on the master bedroom sheets. When he turns the corner, Toru collapses to her knees with a blush on her face, putting a hand on her stomach. She can't help the feeling of butterflies in it. He actually beat her. A shudder goes up her spine at that. The man she has fallen in love with was stronger than one of the primordial goddesses of her world. 10. Just the thought of it makes her core heat up to unimaginable amounts as her arousal begins to leak between her legs, ruining her panties. I need to take a cold shower. Heading to a room, he flares his chakra and concentrates, creating a large bed for both he and Lukoa to rest in. Man, the old sage's power is really useful for the most mundane things sometimes. Laying the ex-goddess down, Naruto follows suit, settling in next to her as he covers them both with a blanket, and Lukoa instinctively grabs onto his body, cuddling into him. Tuckling, Naruto wraps his arms around her as well before closing his eyes, letting his fatigue drift him off into slumber. Hours later. It was around midnight when Naruto wakes up to the feelings of something warm and wet wrapped tightly around his manhood. Opening his eyes, he's only slightly surprised to see Lukoa deep-throating his beat before taking it from her mouth and letting her drool coated. Ah, Nary, you're finally awake. Lemon happened. Breathing heavily, the lady of the house grabs Toru's hand and bursts into the room, causing the original occupants of the room to pause and look at them. Hey big boy, you got room for two more? Grinning at the lustful look in his wife's eyes, Naruto creates more clones that immediately swarm the two. From there, a night filled with debauchery and lust ensued. And it would last till the sun came up in the morning. It was then Kobayashi finally remembered the reason she went looking for Naruto, Lukoa and Toru after she put Kanna to bed. Ah, I was supposed to tell them about Raiko inviting Kanna over to her house so they could play tomorrow. A few ropes of foam then blast into her open mouth and on her face as the clone she is currently jerking off reaches his limit while she bounces in the lap of yet another under her. I guess it can wait till morning. Chapter end. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Peace out.